Good afternoon, Backstitchers. Welcome to the Sculpt Along for the pattern weights. We're glad to have you all here. Excuse my voice, I'm kind of hoarse right now. My daughter got me to go on a roller coaster while we're on vacation and I screamed my guts out. So my voice is a little rough right now. We are doing a sculpt along for the Edna and the Gus pattern weights that I made for the Hurricane Dorian fundraiser. If you haven't seen them, this is Gus, the one that we'll be doing. He's sitting on the pincushion / pumpkin, and this is Edna, who's standing on a spool of thread. So it's a 5-day class, and day 1, which is today, we'll be going over the supplies that we need for each character. Day 2, we'll be sculpting the head for each character, and day 3, sculpting the body. Day 4, forming the base around your weight, and then day 5, we finish the base with adding your colored clay and attaching the character to the base of your pattern weight. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and start with Edna. So the colors that I chose for Edna, and when I say that I chose, these are just the colors that I use. If you find colors that you want to use that are different, that's a-okay. There's no right or wrong colors to choose. It's all based on what you prefer. But the colors that I'm using for Edna is, we'll start off with, this is your 8-ounce. I already cut into this because I'm recording this the second time because I lost the first video that I did. So this is your 8-ounce Primo Sculpting white clay. It's in a brick. It's pretty pliable. This is going to be your 2-ounce brick of Primo Sculpting black, and then pomegranate red Primo Sculpting, and then we are also using a magenta color, which is called Turnip, and this is Sculpting Souffle. Now the Primo Sculpting is in 2-ounce bricks, and then the Sculpting Souffle is in 1.7-ounce bricks. And then we have Cowboy Brown in the Souffle. And then we have the Guava Pink in Souffle. And those are the colors that we will be using for Edna. Now for Gus, we'll be using, again, the white, the pomegranate red, the black, let's see, Cowboy Brown, the Guava Pink, Sea Glass Aqua, Robin's Egg Blue, Canary Yellow. And then on the supply list, it shows you which colors are under the Primo and then which colors are under Souffle. All right, so those are the color clays that we'll be using for both characters. Some of the other supplies on the supply list I'll go over with you with that. A big thing that you need while we're doing this is baby wipes. They don't have to be any particular brand. I get unscented, and then I just get the cheapest pack of baby wipes there is. you need to have those to clean off your board and to wipe your hands down. Let's see, clay softener, Sculpting clay softener. So in the supply list, I recommended, if you could, to go and get your to actually physically go to the store and pick out your clay, because you want your clay to be somewhat pliable. Like if you push down, you can see, let me see if black works better. You can see your finger indentations. See? And it's not, because some clay, the longer they sit on the shelf, the harder they become. And you'll have to use that clay softener in order to get it pliable and easy to work with. However, if you weren't able to go to the store, or you chose to purchase your clay off of the internet, I suggested getting this, because the people who fill the order, they pull the bricks of clay, so you may have gotten a brick that was hard and needs to be softened up a bit. So if you have to do that, just like maybe a drop in the piece that you're using, and just work it into the clay, and it should be pliable. Let's see, Sculpting Bacon Bond is basically it's a liquid clay, and it's basically, you can use it like a glue. Let's see, the Wilson fondant roller, which on the supply list it was white, but I got the gray for some reason. Now, it comes with these rings that attach, you can slide on like this. And it works really well when you're rolling your clay out, that your one piece of clay is all one thickness. So there's 2 different bands, and each one will give you a different thickness. On mine, the red one is thinner, will give you a thinner thickness, and then the green one will be thicker. I don't work with the bands that much, unless I have to. Let's see, your clay blades is this. It's not as sharp as a razor blade, but it is sharp. It's basically like a really long, dull razor blade. However, I have worked on clay while I was sitting on the couch and the coffee table, and my blade dropped in between the cushion, and I didn't catch it. I didn't know that it had slipped in between the cushions. My husband dropped something and went to go stick his hand in to see if that's where it dropped, and he actually cut his finger almost down to the bone. So it is sharp, and it will cut you. So it's not something that you want to leave laying around, especially if you have small children. Your cutting board. My cutting board is plastic, and it's I couldn't find a glass cutting board that was this big. If I could have, I would have bought the glass one, because I really like the texture of glass and how smooth it is. But I also like the bigger workspace, so I gave up the glass to have a bigger workspace. Now, my cutting board, both of them have no texture. That is very important, because I know when shopping for these, there were a lot of cutting boards that had like grooves, or they had texture in it. You can't have any texture, because when you are rolling your clay out and stuff like that, it will imprint the texture onto your clay. I got my plastic one at a like a kitchen supply store or a chef store. Now, my glass one that I've had forever, this one, I got, I think it was at either Target or Walmart, and I paid I think it was like $7, $7.99 or something. It wasn't that much. And I'll be using that here, and here, like on certain things. Let's see. You'll need a small can of polyurethane when you're done with your project to basically seal it. It's they do have Sculpting makes, or actually Sculpting and Fimo make a glaze or a varnish. I like this is from when I first started doing clay, and I don't use it anymore because it does, even though it's made by the same company that makes a polymer clay, eventually it will, whatever chemicals they put in it, it will break your polymer clay down and it will weaken your clay over time. And if you spend a lot of time sculpting something, the last thing you would want is for it to like basically disintegrate. The stylus tool set. So on the shopping list, it was blue, and it comes with these 4, which are your ball tools, and then these over here have your silicone tips, but at the very bottom they have even smaller ball tools, which let's see, looks it's like this. So here's one. Mine looks different, but it's the same thing. So here's the silicone tip, and then on the end you can see the little ball tool. So these 4 are the same as in the picture. They have different size balls on each end, as you can see. And then the silicone tips that you'll be using are these. So this one right here is your pointed one, which you'll be using a lot. This one is like kind of reminds me of like a baby tooth with the way it's shaped, if you can, like a front tooth maybe. I've hardly ever used this. This one is like a flathead screwdriver, and I do use that. This one is like, if you can see, I don't know. You can see it's the end is like a I use them to push in like a mouth. It makes a perfect smile or a frown. And then this one is, it's kind of like a rubber blade, and I use this one a lot too. So those are your silicone tools that we will be using in the class. The one that I use the most is this one. It's the pointed one, because the pieces that will be, some of the pieces that we'll be creating are really small, and all you basically have to do is you just barely touch it and it sticks to the end. Let's see. Your brushes are these, and I recommend, and like I said, this is just the tools that I use. I got Craft Smart, and you can get these at Michael's, and I think I found them on Amazon, but they were for some reason they were a lot more expensive on Amazon than they were at Michael's. But I got the one with the pointed tips, just because sometimes we need to get glue in tight spots, or like a very fine line, and for me it's harder to do that with say like a brush that is like a tip like that where it's just a square. All right. We will also need cornstarch. You can get a small, that's mine that I've been using for a long time. You can get a small can. Acetone or fingernail polish remover. I use very fine sandpaper, 1200 grit. This pack has lasted me for a really long time because I just tear little bits and pieces off. It's not like we're sanding, you know, a chair down or anything. We'll need parchment paper, aluminum foil. I have a separate pan that I use I have a conventional oven in my office that I use, so I have a pan dedicated just to put in there. But a disposable aluminum baking pan works really well. And just a cheap thing of blush that I think I paid like $1.99 at Walmart or Target for this. Or you can get like an eyeshadow palette that has pink in it, and then that way you'll have more colors to use if you want to use like blue for highlighting on the pumpkin or anything like that. The weights that we'll be using is nuts. I use nuts, bolts, and washers. For the pumpkin and Edna, I will only be using washers and nuts. So for Edna's weights, we have 2 washers that two steel flat washers in 5/8 size. And these are pretty they're pretty solid. And then for the bolts, or for the nuts, it's a steel hex nut, and it's a 5/8 inch. So when we go to build the base, it'll be something like, you can kind of see how it takes on, it kind of looks like a sewing spool. So that's Edna's base. And then for the weights for Gus, we will be using 2 3/4 inch steel hex nuts, and then 1 steel hex nut in 5/8. So you put 1 small one, your large one, and then the other small one on top to build your weights inside your pumpkin. Just like that. All right, so we went over all the supplies, and that'll be it for day 1. If you take a picture of your supplies and add it to the post for your entry, we always do a giveaway at the end. So that'll be the entry for day 1, is a picture of your supplies. And I can't wait to see you guys on day 2.